Hello everyone. Welcome to the final installment of our three-part webinar series, Finding the Power in Numbers. It's been a great series and I'm so glad you can join us once again. My name is Bernard Hernandez and I am Chief Information Officer with DM&A here in San Diego. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to be here. Just a few logistics before we begin. During the webinar, the phones will be on mute and you will be in listen-only mode. There will be a short question and answer session at the end of the presentation. To ask a question, please type it in using the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel. You can type a question anytime during the webinar and we will answer as many as we can. Those that we do not get to, we will reply via email after the webinar. It is my honor to introduce our three amazing presenters today. From Portland, Maine, we have Mary Keysor. Mary is a success coach with DM&A. Previously, she was the food service director at Maine Medical Center. Mary has won the prestigious Silver Plate Award and is past president of HFM, which is the Legacy Association of AHF. Mary is an amazing individual and is so passionate about everything that she does. Not only is she passionate about her numbers and sharing her knowledge with the industry, her passion truly shines in her amazing works of art that she creates in her free time. Next, from Illinois, we have Dave Reeves. Dave is the Director of Hospitality Services at Elmhurst Memorial Hospital, a 259-bed hospital where he oversees both food, EVS, among other areas. From all of Dave's hard work, he has received the AHF Presidential Special Services Award and the AHF Partnership and Leadership Award. Dave is currently the Treasurer-Elect of AHF. And finally, from Douglas, Wyoming, is Felicia Smith. Felicia is amazing. Just last week, she was promoted to Director of Hospitality at Memorial Hospital of Converse County. And just a few months ago, she was honored as the 2015 CDM of the Year by the Association of Nutrition and Food Service Professionals. Congrats, Felicia, on an awesome year. On that note, without further ado, please welcome Mary, Dave, and Felicia.
Thank you, Bernard. I will too welcome everybody to part 3 of this three-part series, Finding the Power in Numbers. The first series was First Things First, how to get started. Bill Klein and I sort of did the why do this. Part 2, Something's Better Than Nothing. Dave Reeves and I looked at industry tools. How can you make this process easy? And today, it's going to be wonderful to hear real-life stories and mistakes made by two wonderful, very talented peers. So when we talk about mistakes and hear real-life stories, I have to tell you a few of the stories I hear when I talk with people in the industry. Because of my job with DM&A, I have an opportunity to talk with managers about tracking data. And I sometimes hear from managers in small facilities that they just don't have the support people. And I get that. I know they wear many hats. But then I hear from others in large complex facilities that they don't have time to do this number thing and to juggle because they're juggling so many tasks. Their system is so complex and their staff busy too. So today I thought it would be interesting to bring Felicia from a small facility in a rural setting and Dave from a complex health system in a metropolitan setting together. Share their stories, their mistakes, challenges, and their successes. And Bernard mentioned that Felicia was just promoted to Director of Hospitality. She's just a couple of weeks away from receiving her master's in healthcare administration. And I think maybe understanding their financials not only helped Felicia and Dave's organizations, maybe it helped their careers. Both have been promoted from within their organizations to positions in hospitality. So before we go, let's just briefly go over the curriculum. We're going to hear stories. We're going to talk to managers about the mistakes they made and the lessons learned. We're going to hear how these two managers beat the system and what gaining new revenue streams did for them and can do for you. And most of all, the successes they achieved by learning their numbers and using those powerful numbers. So Felicia, I'm going to start with you, and what you'll learn from Felicia, other than some of the amazing things she's done, I think you'll be interested in learning a little bit more about what a critical access hospital and business and retail business title means. Felicia, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you all for joining us today. So I started out on the restaurant side. I didn't start out in healthcare. And so I was a restaurant owner for a few years, and then I was a manager of a restaurant. Decided I wanted some normal hours, I guess. So I went to long-term care, and I worked in basically every position in the kitchen in long-term care, starting from dishwasher, cook, all the way up to eventually dietary manager. While I was there, I was offered the opportunity to become a certified dietary manager, which really, I think, gave me more confidence in working in healthcare. About 3 years later, I moved to Wyoming, and I was recruited as a food service manager for a critical access hospital. Something totally different than anything I'd ever done before, but something I was very excited to try out. So I live in Douglas in Wyoming. It's a very small community. We have approximately 11,000 people in our county, about 6,000 in the town of Douglas. I work for a critical access hospital, which means we're only allowed 25 beds or less. We have emergency services, of course, but the biggest catch is we have to be 35 miles or more from the closest hospital. So our closest hospital is actually about 45 miles away to the nearest facility. What makes ours very unique is we also offer, we have a full medical service. So we employ all our physicians, which means we have surgery center, we have an OB, we have a full service lab. So we are the healthcare facility in our area. They really have to travel if they want to go somewhere else. We are also an energy community, which means the majority of the people that live in our community are supported by the gas, oil, or coal industry. And the hospital is actually the second largest employer, and we employ about 400 people, and that includes 2 rural clinics, our medical office building, and then all the services that we offer in the hospital. So the reason I'm telling you this is as my story progresses, you'll see that not only where we started, but where we've been able to, or what we've been able to accomplish, considering our size and location and the fact that, you know, we do have competition fairly close, even though we're rural. So when I began working in healthcare, I thought I was collecting the data that I needed. I was collecting the same information I collected when I owned a restaurant. But I didn't know what I guess I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't have a clue. So I started looking for different information. I would look at my variance report, see where I was off on my food cost or my labor. But I wasn't catching my meals right. I wasn't tracking the right information. I didn't even know what my profit was. So I was completely missing the mark. So in 2012, we had the opportunity to begin the destination program through DM&A. And at the beginning of this program, I was asked to sign up for AHF, which is Association of Healthcare Food Service, and to get in contact with Mary to begin what's called KNDS, Knowing Numbers Drive Success. This not only helped me improve my data collection, but it also taught me how to capture my meals, which also influenced my productivity. So when I began this program, we were only doing 7,000 meals a month, and I had about 13 FTEs in my department. So KNDS, what it provided me was a way to track the data that I needed and consolidate it and organize it in a way so that I had access to that information. I found that I wasn't recording my meals for inpatient or outpatient accurately. I wasn't tracking my foregone revenue, and so I was losing those numbers. And then I was stocking way too many things in different areas that didn't need to be there. And that included my floor stock, my waiting areas, all of those areas. I wasn't tracking accurately. But I think the information that finally got my attention is I also wasn't tracking employee discounts. We provide a 30% discount in our cafe, or free services, which include free coffee and soda. We are very, very generous to our staff. So when I started adding up these services, they counted for $17,000 a month. These were numbers I had never tracked before. And I had no idea that we were spending this much money in that area. I also was not tracking my catering very well, and therefore I was missing out on capturing not only the meal counts, but the accuracy on how we build the departments that used our services. So I needed to learn to interpret my productivity. So comparing a critical access hospital to a regular acute care setting is like comparing apples and oranges. We have very low patient census, yet I'm producing a lot of meals. So when I compare my cost to patient days, I don't look so good because I have so few patient days. But when I compare my cost to the meals, I look a lot better comparing if I'm trying to benchmark. Especially when you're comparing my hours worked per meal, and I can challenge most large hospitals with the metrics that we're showing. So as we were collecting the data, I realized that my staffing needed adjusted, and we started to look at new scheduling formats and possibly hiring opportunities. We also discovered that the destination program, we were getting better, which means we were also getting bigger. Our service had improved, and our customer base was expanding, but we didn't have what it took to maintain the quality or the quantity of the meals that we were being asked to provide. So along with the growth, the expectations from our leaders and the departments was also changing. They wanted us to raise the bar, and we simply didn't have the skill sets that they were looking for. Nor did we know how to meet those expectations when it seemed we were struggling. We're like every other food service. Some days it's just getting through the day is a great success. So we were struggling. So what happened next, we went to, because of the data I was collecting, I was allowed to hire a full-time executive chef. And I also increased my FTEs for a retail cook and a catering position. I was also able to hire a full-time dietitian, which was huge for our facility. Remember, we're small, 25 beds. And we had been using contract dietitian services for years. We were also then contacted by our local jail, which is county-owned, to bid on their meal services for the inmates. I know this doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it was a huge step forward for our facility. It also meant that I needed to hire more staff. We needed supervisors to oversee the weekends and evenings. And then the roadblock hit. The Affordable Care Act, it kind of put some financial strain on us. We also had some changes in services in our facility. So we were on an entire hospital-wide freeze. Nobody could hire. And I needed more people. So this meant I had to go before our senior leadership and ask for more staff. Okay, remember, we're in a hiring freeze. I'm food service. We're the last people anybody talks to. But I'll never forget that meeting. I walked in and I explained what we could do with this jail contract and the opportunities we had, along with the estimated revenues, and explained what I needed for staffing. And our chief medical officer stood up and said, "She's the only department making money. Give her whatever she wants." I was thrilled. I was awarded 2 full-time FTEs for my supervisor positions. We hired 2 very awesome supervisors, and then we were awarded the jail contract, which began 3 months later. But then we went and asked for more money. My equipment was 30 years old. Couldn't handle the capacity that we were putting on it. So I was able, again, with that information, to show a return of investment for $40,000 worth of brand new equipment for my kitchen in 1 year. And then, because the revenues were so great, they went and bought us a catering van so that we could deliver when the weather was bad, and we were picking up more caterers within the community. And this was all just from the jail contract revenues. We haven't even looked really at promoting our catering services. So they kept purchasing us toys. It was like Christmas year-round in there. And things just kept getting better, so we were on a roll. To get even better, we're now setting new records. Not only in our meal counts, which is pushing 25,000 meals a month. Remember, we started at 7,000. We've also quadrupled our retail sales, and our Press Ganey has climbed, and we've maintained a 90th percentile for 2 years running. Now, are we the best yet? Not by any means, but I think we're working hard to get there. And I also know we are continuing to improve, and the expectations will continue to rise as we improve. But not only from the leaders, now we have the community relying on us. Our retail business is outstanding, and at least 2/3 of my daily customers are people from the community that are coming in. We're also referred to as the place to eat in Douglas, and we're a hospital cafeteria. Our catering requests we keep growing too. We've catered for fundraisers. The cheerleaders have held their banquet right in our cafe. We've catered meals for the Forest Service firefighters, a 50th class reunion, and the list just keeps going on. We have grown from 13 FTEs to 34, and we've also purchased a coffee shop which was independently owned in our lobby. So that area, it's called Mocha Molly's, is also growing, and we've recently relocated them to their own permanent location. So we're continuing to track our data, and Express through AHF is another tool that we're using for benchmarking. And due to Mary's influence, I think I'm becoming a numbers nerd. But what we really hope is that our story will ignite you to work hard, because if we can do it, you can do it as well. So let the numbers do the work for you. Let them tell their story.
Thank you, Felicia. I have to say, I had the privilege of working with you, Felicia, on KNDS for a couple of years, and I watched you become not a numbers nerd, as you say, but a savvy businesswoman. From the start, you were consistent with collecting data. You were determined, and you were smart about finding lost meals. You understood what that meant, and then going after even more. And now, you're in Express, and you can compare yourself to your peers. Your accomplishments are many. We're proud of you. Thank you for sharing today.
Thank you, Mary.
And I'm pleased to now turn this over to Dave Reeves, Director of Hospitality Services at Elmhurst Hospital, Memorial Hospital, and AHF Treasurer-Elect. Dave is very active in his association and has brought a lot of wonderful qualities of his and his particular hospital setting. So with that, Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, Mary, and congratulations, Felicia. You know, I think your story is just, you know, it's just an awesome story of being creative. And, you know, I think, you know, it also takes a heck of a lot of courage to bring forward some of the new ideas like this, and then not only to bring forward those ideas, but then being able to convince senior management to enter into new business opportunities, and definitely a testament to how highly they think of your ability to get the job done and do what you say you're going to do. So again, congratulations. As Mary said, I'm Dave Reeves. I'm the Director of Hospitality Services here at Elmhurst Memorial Hospital in Elmhurst, Illinois. We're a suburb of Chicago, and current AHF Treasurer-Elect. And my career really began in the early 90s, very similar to Felicia, working in hotel and restaurants. And, you know, my transition to healthcare really happened quite accidentally, and really was rather a selfish reason, because, you know, in hotels and restaurants, if you've ever worked in those facilities, the hours are extremely challenging. It's really tough to, you know, have a good, healthy marriage and be working every weekend or nights when there, you know, large banquets are going on. So I really thought healthcare could be a better fit that way. And, you know, definitely better hours, but I don't think it's any easier. I think we've got some significant challenges. And, you know, I think while there's a lot of similarities between the two industries, there's a lot of differences as well. You know, and early in my background, you know, I didn't like math. You know, really that was something that I tried to stay away from. I didn't do well at it in school, and so anything that I could do to avoid it was was something that I felt was in my best interest. However, as I started to develop in my career, I started to realize that whether it was doing a schedule for a staff and having to schedule to certain hours, or whether you were doing time cards, and for those of us that remember of having to do time cards rather than the automated payroll systems, that you needed to know math, and as well as purchasing. So it was something that was really just unavoidable. And then here in the mid 90s, this thing called benchmarking came along, and you really needed to know your numbers, and know your numbers ever since. Now, my background, when I started in healthcare, I had a director who was a great mentor to me, and he really encouraged me. He said, "Dave, you don't want to be known as the food guy around here, but you want to be known as the general manager that can really manage any type of function in the organization." So he really promoted to me the importance of going back to school, going to get my MBA, and it was evident to me that finance was probably the weakest area that I had. So it's something that I decided to concentrate on, and I can tell you I'm very confident that knowing my numbers and being able to work the finances has been definitely helpful to my career, as well as the department has been able to be represented and benefit as well pretty significantly. So wanted to talk a little bit about Elmhurst Memorial Hospital. We had a new campus that was built in 2011. And what you're looking at here on the slide is the main entrance to our replacement campus. And we had really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to design this new facility. And it was something that was designed from an entirely blank sheet of paper. So when I went into the design sessions, they basically said, here's a box. You design whatever you want to design within that box. There were no limitations on placement of equipment, utilities, anything of that nature. So it's something I'm really proud to have participated in. And also, it's really, we developed a great, beautiful hospital. It's actually been ranked in the top 20 of the most beautiful hospitals. 2013, we were rated second place, as well as just this past year, 2015, we had eighth place rating. So again, if you're ever in the area, feel free, give me a call. I would definitely give you a tour of our campus, as well as, obviously the food service department as well. A little bit more about Elmhurst is that we were founded in 1926. We're located in the western suburbs of Chicago. Of course, we're just a short distance from O'Hare Airport. Our new campus features 259 private rooms, and we have developed the Wildflower Food Service brand, which is the name that we utilize for all of our food service operations, whether it's the room service, cafe, catering, vending, whatever we do, it's behind the Wildflower Food Service brand. We really wanted to try and break away from the stigma of dietary, and so we've worked hard to move away from that. And I think the food that we prepare and serve to our patients and staff and guests really also reflect that as well. So I think some of the important facts that I've learned about working in healthcare food service is that generally it takes time for your knowledge and skills for the food service and finance healthcare to develop. And really, I think overcoming the gaps that you have, it's really critical to reach out to others. And that's one of the mistakes that I made, is I kind of held things real close to me that I wasn't reaching out to others. And I can't stress the importance of saying, to somebody, whether it might be somebody in finance, or whether it might be a mentor that you have, or somebody in your professional associations, reach out and, don't be afraid to address the gaps that you might have, because I'm telling you that, today's C-suite administration, really, they expect their management to know their numbers. And many of us have been promoted from within the ranks, and we maybe don't know necessarily all the things, but it's a very short honeymoon, and very short honeymoon, and they will expect you to know their numbers. Now, one of the things here at Elmhurst Memorial Hospital is that we are part of a larger health system, and we did merge with another organization. We are now the part of Edward Elmhurst Healthcare, and the merger occurred a couple years ago, and I'm telling you, the very first thing that transpired in the merger, and it was actually even prior to the merger being completed, was that a firm was hired to come in and compare department by department to each other, and this was done throughout the entire hospital. And unfortunately, the other hospital is contract managed, so right off the bat, my numbers were being compared to a contract managed facility. Well, I did have the ability to know my numbers and be able to provide those easily, so that was something that was really critical and worked out to my favor. And I think thinking about how you can use your financial skills to your advantage, if you look at what Felicia said, where she mentioned it was like Christmas in her facility, Santa wasn't delivering any presents to Felicia. It was her hard work and her ability to justify that equipment that needed to get that done. Nobody gave it to her. So really, there's so much capital out here that needs to be spent in organization. And again, as Felicia said, it's not easy for food service to get to the top of that list. So one, you really need to learn how to justify capital and use the numbers to work to your advantage. I think the second thing I would mention is being able to analyze your services. Again, Felicia did this, but determining what business is worthwhile to get into. The locomollies that she mentioned, or whether it's the jail contract, getting into doing ROIs and figuring out what volume, what business you want to get into. That's something that I think is really critical. Also, I think it helps you understand the overall organization. And then lastly, and I think we mentioned this a little bit in the last webinar, but it's really important to be proactive rather than reactive. And that's, I think, a position that we all want to be in, is being proactive rather than reacting to things, because it's so much easier to be proactive. So as I mentioned, Elmhurst had designed and built a replacement campus. And it was done because our campus was in need of desperate repair. We were landlocked. We needed to expand our organization, and therefore what we did is we relocated 3 miles south. That was completely off the campus that we were previously on. We had to justify virtually every decision that we made. So financial performance drove virtually most every decision that was made. And then I think it's important to note here that, when you're opening a facility in 2011, the design phase for a facility that's opening like ours was really taking place in 2006 and 2007. So what happened after we were completely done with our design and the facility started to go into construction was that the whole question of being able to fund the operations that we had designed really became in question. We had, the recession of 2007, 2009 that hit, wasn't even on the radar when we designed the facility. And then Affordable Care Act, that totally changed everything. So if you were to come to our facility, you would see a facility that's really, really large. It's a big facility. It was built for growth. My food service areas were virtually doubled in size without a lot of additional beds. So it was really something that we had to figure out, how were we going to make this operation function. We were transitioning from a tray line to room service. And so whether or not we relocated to a new campus, that was something we were going to need to do irregardless. But what we did want to do is we really wanted to step up our food. And the new campus offered us the opportunity to do things that we just couldn't have done at the other facility, whether it was, the cafe style that food that we served, really platforms, we're multi-platforms where we're able to get the food prepared out in front of our guests, our customers. And then one of the things that I promoted and really had been promoting all along through this, was that we needed to go to a retail-driven model, which was really looking at how can we focus on generating revenue, because remember, most of our meals now in healthcare food service, majority of our meals are really starting to shift to the retail focus. So I can do a lot more by driving revenue than I can by cutting costs in some instances, as well as we were opening a Starbucks licensed store. So, that was something that was an additional service that we had that wasn't out there previously at the other hospital. And all of these changes were really impacting the resources that I needed for my operations. And, the question was, in design sessions, everybody was real happy. Yeah, sure, do this, do that, do that. But when it came to the reality to fund it, that was a totally different story. And I was going to need to have some additional FTEs. And again, now you have FTE add really was the result of the move from semi-private to all private rooms, and food service was going to then start to deliver all the trays rather than having nursing delivering the trays. The Wildflower Cafe was, twice the size. We had 6 stations open at lunch. So that was going to be something that if we wanted to fund the cafe like we had designed it, we were going to need to add the FTEs. The Starbucks licensed store, of course, that needed to add additional revenue, not just shift sales within the organization. So that was something that I was really concerned about. How are we going to add sales to the organization and just not shift the current volume of sales between one retail facility to the other? But then our facility, like I said, it nearly doubled in size. It went from 450,000 square feet to 1.2 million at the new facility. And Felicia had mentioned kind of her aha moment, which was similar to mine when I was asking for the additional FTEs. And I remember a vice president, she asked me, she said, "Dave, what if your predictions on sales volume don't come true?" And I calmly replied and professionally replied to every senior manager in there. I said, if my financial projections don't come true, then this organization has a lot greater problems to worry about than just my operations, because my numbers are based upon what the projections are that we have for their overall campus. And if my numbers are off, that means that the overall entire campus volumes were going to be off as well. And the result that I was granted additional staff. It was additional FTEs, less than I wanted, but it was still FTEs that I was going to be able to keep the integrity of the design in food service, as well as focus on that retail-driven model. And so I was granted on food service additional 15 FTEs, and for my environmental services division, we received an additional 40 FTEs. So again, less than I wanted, but still successful. So the success of the operations were partially really a result of knowing my financials and really being able to speak to the current and future numbers. I wanted to, again, not compromise the alternatives to mess with the integrity of the design. And then I also focused on things like, food cost savings. For example, the room service. How are we going to, utilize less waste with room service? Or in the cafe, since we were going to have a platform that people were getting food that was cooked closer to the time of delivery, that we could have the food cost savings there. And then really, again, I think it's the important thing here that we want to drive home today is really starting to focus on a retail driven model, getting my sales and selling prices up to a level that was competitive with the local real market here was really, really important. And then, focusing on that revenue generation to offset the additional expenses. Now, again, when we were opening up the new facility, one of the things that we had to have, we had to float a lot of bonds to fund the facility. So, the bond covenants and ratings were really impacted by our FTEs per adjusted occupied bed. And, given that obstacle, it was really challenging as, even if I had been the best person to be able to sell my ideas, the organization really was concerned at the time because, had we not met our finances, and the bondholders had in the bond covenants that they could have brought in a turnaround management firm and replaced leadership to fix the problem. So, I could not fail. That was one thing that I realized, that failing on this would have a much greater problem than just, my department not being able to operate as it should. So what we were able to do is we did open the operations. We opened the operations with minimal change. The organizational finances were really, initially, they were very challenging. We did not have the additional volume like we did. And actually, my prediction to senior management about not getting the volume in the organization really was true, that we did have a much greater problem than Dave's food service operations. However, really after the first year and a half of operations, we started to see real steady growth. And as it stands, last year was the best financial year that I've had, and the organization is really happy and really satisfied with the results. But it was really initially quite challenging. So, I would say, some of the mistakes, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I think, but, I think one of the things I would recommend, for this presentation would really, don't underestimate your success. If you can, if you're good and have a good solid plan and work this through, you'll be successful. And you don't want to overestimate, of course, but and not be able to deliver, but don't underestimate. I think the other way of finding creative ways to fund multiple projects, and it's been really successful. And I remember that same boss that told me about not being just the food guy also said to me, no guts, no glory, Dave. If you don't ask for something, you never propose something, you're never going to get it. And that's something that I think is important. Go out and propose new ideas. Be the idea generator. Be the creative person out there to let people know what you can do. You might not. You aren't going to get everything that you propose. But if you don't go out there and propose it, then you're never going to get it. And then I think you really gain some huge wins with the right decisions, and the organization is definitely much better off. And then you ultimately gain some credibility, and by doing what you say you'll do, and then learning to justify the project through an ROI is one important aspect. But I think equally important to that, if not maybe even slightly more important, is going back to do a follow-up ROI to prove your success. You want to be able to share with others and get your future credibility. If you go back and you say to them, look, this is what we proposed in our ROI, which was a 3-year, 2-year payback, whatever it is, and we actually came in right on my projections, or we came in slightly under. Those are the type of successes that administration want to hear about, and that will add a great deal to your future credibility. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Mary, and so she can close out the webinar.
Dave, I have to say I totally agree with you that using an ROI to justify a project is expected in today's marketplace, but following up with an ROI to actually prove success is just smart business and certainly helps at the next table. I had a chance to, Dave has invited you to come and visit his hospital if you're in the area. I had that chance, and we walked around this amazing facility. It is absolutely gorgeous and so well planned. And it seemed to me that no matter where we went, Dave was involved in some way in the planning of it. He had an unusual opportunity most of us never get to help plan a new facility from the ground up. And he used financials to help his system know what to do. Like Felicia, Dave just keeps getting stronger and more involved with his work and his profession. Dave, thank you for joining us. You set the bar high. Our last slide is, I thought it would be interesting to put a list of new revenue streams that Dave and Felicia have used and just have some more conversation about this. I think the success of our presenters is so amazing. They faced very tough economic challenges and still beat the system by using numbers to prove the financial benefits to the hospital by using this retail-driven model. And I know I used to get so frustrated when the budget committee or administration would say cut expenses, and not understand how incredibly helpful the retail area can be. So just like Dave said, just keep asking, keep suggesting, you can't go wrong with bringing new ideas to the table. But look at the revenue streams, jail contracts, long-term care weekend meals. All of these things are so out of the box. And thanks to Dave and Felicia for sharing that. Would you two, Dave and Felicia, like to add any of your final thoughts to this new revenue stream list?
I think you
Sure.
said it well, Mary, as far as don't be afraid to ask, don't be afraid to think outside of the box, because all they can do is tell you no.
I would agree. You know, it doesn't hurt. It's amazing how many times you go propose something, and I understand many organizations are different, but you know, sometimes you get that up. You know, I've had so many times that I've proposed on certain things, but then the timing is right, and at that time they'll say, okay, let's do it. So really, it's keeping on with your ideas. Don't just get discouraged if you're turned down the first time. Just turn it to your advantage at a later time.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And I just talked to somebody not too long ago, and they were frustrated because they've wanted to get their floor stock problem under control for years, and they keep bringing new ideas. And I guess I said to them, I know you get discouraged, but this is a new day. There are some really tough restrictions out there. Administration's nervous about what this new health care is going to do. So anything you can do, and whether you get turned down or not, just go for it. So with that, thanks to Dave and Felicia for your insightful discussions and for sharing all of your mistakes and most of your successes. Thanks a lot. Back to you, Bernard.
Thanks, Mary, and thank you, Felicia and Dave, for sharing your amazing journeys. Excellent job. At this time, we have time for a few questions. So if you have a question for Felicia or Dave or Mary, please type it in the questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel at this time. And I think we had a few that came in during the webinar. So I think both Felicia and Dave can answer this question. So Felicia, if you can go first, and then Dave can answer. Our organization is nonprofit and does not want to compete within the community. Dave and Felicia, are your facilities both nonprofit? If so, how did you overcome this issue?
Okay, my facility is definitely a nonprofit, and we don't technically advertise, so we're not purposely going out there to compete with the local restaurants or different organizations in our community. I had the same question when we started growing and we started with the success, and my CFO explained to me that food service, it's just basically helping the bottom line of our organization. So where another area might be struggling, we're helping keeping us financially feasible as an organization as a whole. So as long as you don't purposely go out and try to undercut or compete against your local facilities, I don't think there should be an issue.
And I would agree with that. You know, and we've purposely not gone out to compete with other local facilities. You know, but I think it's really important to understand that those other facilities can come within your facility for food service. So you want to be able to capture all volume that you can, whether it's from catering that's coming in, and you're offsetting the cost of the organization spending money to an outside organization. Also, you know, I have something that's a little creative, and it's in my one of the other departments that I manage, which is the laundry department. We do have a fully functioning laundry, and what we did do is we did set up the laundry in one of our for-profit businesses. And so now the laundry, it can go out and compete. So, but you want to make sure that you know, if you are going out with something, make sure that you're proposing, you want to make sure that finance is aware of it, because there are things, especially in the state of Illinois, because the state of Illinois, we're pulling organizations nonprofit status several years ago because they were doing things like that. So we're very, very concerned about that, making sure it doesn't do that, as well as what it might do to the your image in the community to local businesses if you're going out stealing business from them.
Thank you both. This next question's for Felicia. I'm curious about driving up revenue in the critical access hospital. Aren't retail revenues deducted from Medicare, Medicaid reimbursements? How does driving up sales at the register help the hospital's bottom line if the money is taken away later?
Okay, I actually just had to address this here a couple weeks ago. So basically in the retail, the stuff that we do that is community-based, so anybody that's coming in off the street to eat in our organization, does not impact our Medicare reimbursement. But I have to track my employees' meal counts compared to my county or the people that are coming in from the community. So when I run my reports at the end of the month, the way I do that is because we do a discount, I can track how many transactions were actually meals to employees. So I have to separate that out because that is part of the deduction. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Felicia. This next one looks like it could be for both of you guys. In 2017, hospitals anticipate huge decreases in reimbursements. How do you expect those numbers to affect your operations?
I think, you know, it's going to be something that we have to be extremely creative with. And, you know, I think, you know, as I said earlier, looking at how we can drive the retail business, making sure that we're not, you know, operating on a subsidy in the cafeteria. That's something that, you know, we need to make sure that I think as a food service profession, we are really striving to not operate at subsidies anymore. I understand it might be difficult in some organizations, but those are the ways that I think we can really drive down the cost of our operations by focusing on that retail revenue. But, you know, the continuing challenges of healthcare, it's going to be, you know, this isn't going to end tomorrow in 2017. It's going to be been challenging for years, and it's going to be extremely challenging going forward.
Thanks, Dave.
And I have to completely agree with Dave on that. You just have to be creative and don't base your reimbursement on just your patient care as far as keeping your organization going.
Thanks, Felicia. This next question is for both. Felicia, if you can go first, and then Dave. Our organization is very concerned about keeping cafe prices low for the employees. With that obstacle in place, there is no way we can function like a true retail operation. Any suggestions?
Well, in our organization, we offer a 30% discount to all our employees. Mocha Molly's, or the coffee shop itself, is considered a gourmet outlet, so they pay full price there. So in order to keep the prices low for our employees, they get the discount, the community pays full price.
So this is one that I guess I'm a little passionate about, and I think, you know, again, we need to look at, obviously, what is feasible in your organization to do, but, you know, it really, serving food at a less than market value isn't going to do anything to help the operations in the long run. And I think, you know, if you want to move away from that model, my suggestion would be not to try and do it overnight, but starting to educate your administrator on the cost of that. And I think sometimes if you educate them that it's going to be costing your organization, I'm throwing a number out, you know, $100,000 or $300,000 or $500,000, you know, people start, you know, senior management starts to get that, and they're thinking, wow, we're actually giving that much money away. So really, you have to balance out the whole piece between employee engagement and what that has, but also what are the costs of the organization, and really just driving home what is that cost to the organization, and understand it's probably not going to change overnight. You're going to have to do this over a number of years, and you probably should do it over a number of years. But if you're not raising the issue and not letting people know, it's you know, you're just going to be stuck with that forever, and there's going to come a point in time where you know, it's just going to be unsustainable.
Thank you. This question is for both. Dave, if you can go first. I am always impressed when people manage additional departments. Did you have to ask to do this, or did your facilities have you do it?
So yeah, in my instance, as I mentioned, you know, the boss who said to me I needed to be more of a multi-department manager, and you know, that was actually quite early. It was late 90s that he asked me to do that, and you know, I did it at the time. And so you know, and I really, you know, food service is really what's core to my heart. You know, EBS and laundry, those type of things. You know, I enjoy the management aspect of it, but I hate doing laundry and I hate cleaning the house. So I love to cook. So, but going out and letting your administration know that, hey, I'm confident enough in my skills that I can manage anything, is going to just add to your credibility, because I would argue that this is where the future is going to be in healthcare food service leadership. I know that people are going to just, as the reimbursements, like we talk about, continue to decline, multi-department management is going to become more and more and more common. So I would go out there and you know, just present your interest in doing it, and then you know, give it a shot. I think you make yourself a much better manager.
I completely agree with you, Dave. I did the same thing, and basically they created the position for me because I kept coming back and saying, hey, I can do this, look what my team has done, and they actually created that position in order for me to be put into that place. So.
Very good, thanks. Felicia, this question is for you. This person also manages a 25-bed critical access hospital. We do not sell meals to the public or the staff, as they were told they would need to prove that 100% of the food dollars go to patient care. Any suggestions as to whether this is accurate?
I have never heard of that. As far as, you know, maybe something in their state legislation. I'm not sure of that, what their critical access regulations are. Here, I have to definitely break it down by how much is going to my patient care, how much is going to my retail or my catering. I have to break those dollars out, but I just have to show where they're going. So there's no limitations on where I'm putting my food costs, as long as I can show how much is going to patient care and how much is going elsewhere.
Thanks, Felicia. And this will be the final question for both, if Dave can answer first. Could you expand on what you mean by a retail-driven model for food and nutrition services?
So I think retail-driven model is everything that we've kind of talked about, where, you know, retail, we're operating our business like it's a retail business. That means from a staffing perspective, that means looking at, the hours of operation. It looks at driving sales to offset your expenses, and really, looking at just how we're going to market things. And when I first came into healthcare, we did not look at things from a retail perspective. Unbelievable. We would actually, this is a true story, but we would turn people away that were coming into the organization and not allow them to come into the cafeteria at certain times because we did not want to have people coming in. And it was a completely insane philosophy, but it was a philosophy at the time. So looking at how you're going to drive retail sales to offset your expenses is really what I think what I'm trying to drive home today, and I think we're talking about.
And I agree with Dave. That definitely helps offset your expenses. Critical access especially, our average daily census is maybe 8 to 12 patient meals. So if I was to rely on just those meals being prepared and not offering to the community or a retail setup like we have, I would have maybe 4 employees compared to 34 because I couldn't justify those expenses, nor could I justify, equipment. There's just no way to support it with this small facility.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Felicia. This concludes our Q&A session. All right, folks, by tomorrow, you will be receiving a post-webinar email from me, which will contain today's presentation handout, the CEU certificate, where you get 1 CEU from the Certifying Board for Dietary Managers and from the Commission on Dietetic Registration. And I'll also include links to all 3 webinar recordings. So if you want to review them again or share them with your staff, feel free to do so. Folks, if you have any needs, need support, or have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to contact DM&A. We'd be happy to provide a free consultation with Mary or one of our other excellent success coaches. Look at our website, destination10.com. Check out all the services that we have to offer. We are here to help you guys make your department successful. If you reference this webinar using code KNDS10, you will receive 10% off of this DM&A service. On behalf of Mary, Dave, Felicia, and myself, thank you so much for attending our webinar series. We hope you enjoyed it and that the information you received and things you learned have a positive impact for you and your job and your department. Have an amazing rest of the day. Until next time, goodbye, everyone.